But I do want to start, I want to call our meeting to order tonight like we normally do, and I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like to stand and recite the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before I begin, I'd ask that you give me a little latitude tonight. I would like just to take a minute to do a moment of silence. We've had a neighboring district get hit with the death of a student, a junior student, and a freshman student who is not in good shape. So if we could just take a moment of silence for them, please. Thank you. That was one of the worst things about teaching, is when it affected me and my classrooms. The secretary noted that the only two that are missing are our two student representatives.
It was awesome.
And I am going to turn the meeting over to Sue.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you again. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah, I don't usually have a problem with that. Welcome to the administrators. Really glad that you're here to join us today. For those of you board members who were here last month when I was here, today's a whole different day. Okay, today the topic is goal setting, and it's your work, not mine today. So I'm here to help guide the process. Same rules apply. I'm not formal. You got questions, ask them. If the conversation really goes off the rails, I'm going to try and pull it back. But for the most part, I am a believer in this process that all discussion is good discussion. So today we're going to sort of switch gears. We were very planted in the present and maybe even a little bit in the past last time. Now we're focusing on the future. Bill and I had some talks, Curly and I had some talks, and one of the things, if you remember, we talked a lot last time about having a vision for your district and building your goals, building your plan around that vision. Since we haven't gotten there yet, and that's a pretty intense and involved and long process, our goal tonight is to come out with goals that are sort of this school year into next school year. Would you say that's kind of what we talked about? And also, we're hoping to be able to start into that strategic planning process, which starts with the vision, in the spring of this year, realizing that that can take the better part of a school year to really solidify and get everybody in on that. Because that's where you're going to want to get your communities involved and really reach out and make sure that the direction you're establishing for the next 3 to 5 years is consistent with the community and the values in your community and the desires for your education system that come from all of your stakeholders. So we're kind of short-circuiting that right now by focusing on shorter-term goals. So it's okay to keep those long-range goals in your mind. Don't forget about them. You can use them to set context. That's all good. And before we get going on that, though, we just all had a heavy, hot dinner, and I'm going to ask you all to get up in a minute. And I want you to think about your dream vacation. If there was no restriction on time and no restriction on money, two pretty nice ifs, what would you do? Where would you go? How would you spend your vacation time?
Italy.
Think about that for a moment. And then I'm going to invite you to get up and start talking to each other about that. And I want you to try and self-form groups that have some common thread about your desire for vacation. So it may be that you've got a group of beach people, or it may be You've got a group of sightseers. I actually once had a group that just liked to stay home and do nothing. So talk among yourselves, what's your fantasy? And I have been asked by, what's your name? William. Just be careful of the cords that are on the floor, because we've got mics at every table. So please just pay attention to that, because I don't want to see any accidents. Yes.
How long is this vacation?
How long is the vacation?
That depends on my answer.
Let's say it's a month.
A month. Wow.
A month. Totally Italy. Okay. What are you going to do for a month?
It'll blend out.
Maybe you're going to self-select based on where you're going or how you're spending the time. Doesn't matter. Find your groups. Go. I don't yell very loud. Let's start over here.
I'm going to Chile.
And what do you do?
We start from the northern part, and then we drop down to the middle where there's the national parks where you can do a multi-day trek in the Andes.
What do you have for dinner?
It doesn't matter. And then you go down to the shoreline because it offers both the mountains and the ocean side of it. Go down to the shoreline all the way down to Patagonia, the tip of the earth.
Wow.
I know. I can convince any one of you guys to do it. And that's where we end the trip.
It sounds like Dina's really thought this through.
Yeah, I have it all planned out.
Time on this one. Bill, are you going with her?
Well, I was looking for hiking. I was thinking about hiking in the Alps, and then I was.
There you go right there. Trish is hiking, I'm camping.
Yeah, we're hiking with a little fossil. You know, I want to have a shower once in a while, every couple of days.
Yeah.
No, God, no.
Okay, so I'm hearing hiking, camping in different locations, right? That's sort of a group, but you're part of another.
Definitely not city.
Okay. But you appear to be in a different group also.
We're like-
What's your other group?
This girl and I were, in Rutland.
We're all on this kind of outdoor hiking.
There's an axis.
Yeah, adventure and.
Outdoor adventure.
Yeah, you talked about hiking the Alps, right?
Got it.
So we're a straight line here.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to follow. And are you part of that also?
We were the European coalition.
Yeah. European.
Different
Starting off over here.
I'm going to. Germany's where I'm starting.
Scandinavia, Sweden, Norway.
And Italy.
Oh, wait, you were Italy? Okay, so
They can join us.
okay, so I'm hearing sort of sightseeing, visiting all the cathedrals, that kind of
Ruins.
I was thinking more mountainside. But,
mountainside.
a little bit of sightseeing.
Okay. How about way back there? What are you guys up to?
There's a beach.
We had an Asia group going for a while. Then we were taking in some folks that were interested in architecture that was going to take us to Barcelona. And
Barcelona.
and then somebody said Machu Picchu, and I said, yeah.
He jumped.
So you're just game.
Temples in Tibet, wherever. Stand by
And how
yourself.
about the rest of you back
Over
here
there.
who were part of the hiking and camping?
We're going to go out west, and then we're going to Hawaii with our families, even.
No. Okay, here's a question. Who's bringing your kids?
Depends on the day.
Okay.
Don't look at me, no.
Everybody.
Okay, so it's kind of interesting, you've got real clusters, right, of different interests. I hear the outdoor
Everybody's
interests.
with me.
Oh, Scott, where are you going?
I'm going heli-skiing in Alaska.
All right.
I'm going to Alaska, but the hell is can I
I'll ski.
Whole month?
You are your own group.
So sometimes there are some common threads going on in groups that we don't even know are there because you don't have the opportunity to get to have that conversation necessarily, right? You show up for your board meeting, you do your board business, and you leave. And for the administrators in the room, I am going to be really board-centric tonight, so please understand that. You know, you never get the context. You never get the personal stuff. So sometimes it's worth looking for that a little bit. So before you get too comfortable, I'm going to make you move. At this table, bring your stuff, especially if you're eating or drinking anything. If you've got this crap on the floor, you can leave it because we're going to move again. At this table, I would like Brittany, Allison and Charlene. And at this table, I would like Ann, Tricia, Kathy, and Pearlie. Oops, excuse me.
Oh, at this table?
Right here in the middle.
Perfect.
And at this table, Dina, Kevin, Stephanie, and Erin.
I mean,
You don't have to, but you're going to be here for a little while.
so should I bring my stuff?
Well, if you've got notes that you want to bring, if you've got a water bottle that you're drinking, you want to bring that with you, that's all good.
So now I gotta.
I'm not eating your dinner.
Really consider the
And
age.
once those two back tables are empty,
Cheap like
please, administrators and building administrators, central office folks.
I don't want the microphone like.
No, you may not unplug your mic. This is a war.
And unplug the mic.
Doing school.
Is there anybody attending as a member of the public? We should just make sure that they are heard from us. Okay. Ah, good. If they're heard, it's good that we don't have to make more time for more stuff. Okay. So what are our goals anyway?
My tummy's hearing.
What are goals? Why do you need them? Why are we here tonight?
To set a path forward.
I have an answer.
Okay, go.
Something we're striving for to better ourselves so we're not complacent.
Okay. Let me ask the question a little differently. Why does a school district need goals?
Go dysfunctional.
I didn't hear.
So we're not dysfunctional.
Well, you always want to be moving forward. You want to
Okay.
make progress. You want to be always striving for that next, at whatever level or wherever we are in the world. We always want to keep moving forward.
Okay. Allison?
Set measurable outcomes.
So you have measurable outcomes. Anybody else? Yeah. Sorry, Eric.
You need a vision, you need the goal. I mean, you can't measure anything without setting goals. So, as was said, the future and a collaborative effort. I think it brings, goals bring teamwork.
Okay. Anybody else want to chime in? Well, let me start with this. If you didn't have goals, how would you know how to get to your vacation spot? And more importantly, how would you know when you were there if you didn't know what you wanted and where you were going? Right? You might get to Machu Picchu and go, yeah, okay, I'm here now. But if it's something that you really had planned on and were striving for and had a plan to make happen, then you achieve something when you get there as well, right? I mean, I could have come down, I know Rutland fairly well. I don't live here, but I know Rutland fairly well. But if I didn't have my GPS on to get me to the country club last time, I would have ended up downtown. And then I would have, I mean, I know where your offices are, right? So you need to know where you're going in order to know if you've gotten there. And I think that's an important thing. So when we talk about setting goals, we start with where are we now? Where are we now and what do we like about that and what do we want to work on? And then we go to where do we want to be, right? And that's where the mission comes in, that's where the vision comes in. This is the big picture stuff. How do we get there? That's the goal piece. Once we know where we want to be, how are we going to get there? And then how are we progressing in our effort to get there? And that, we talked last time about one of the board's jobs is monitoring. That's the monitoring piece. So a good place to start with this is what we call a Soar analysis. Some of you may have heard other versions of this, but I kind of like this language around these. So we're going to look at the strengths, the opportunities, the aspirations, and the results. That's a starting place to take the inventory of where are we now. Right? Where are we now? So with that in mind, I've already messed this up.
Presentation, Bill. Did she send you this presentation?
Okay. So, you folks over here are going to take some time to figure out what you collectively think the strengths are. I've just put a second page there so you don't bleed through. Okay, what are the strengths of the Rutland City School District? What are you doing well that you're really proud of? Folks, get the opportunities. Where do you see an opening to make things better? Where are the opportunities? I'll let you guys talk about the results. I'll get you a Sharpie.
Oh, that's probably not.
And administrators, I would love it if you all could co-collaborate back here and talk about the aspirations that you have. Thank you. Here. I'll put it here, but if both tables can work together on this, that would be great.
They have really good handwriting.
Let's hear what the group that was talking about strengths came up with, and then if there's anything that triggers anybody, let's add to their list or discuss their list.
Smells good. Sharpie. Smell that right through. Right.
I remember doing this one.
So for strengths, we highlighted our alternative education programs. We highlighted collaboration and community outreach, engaging teachers and staff, being that they're engaging, I guess. Right. Supportive community and enrichment opportunities.
I see some nodding going on. Anybody want to elaborate on any of that or have something else that you would really want to put in the idea of strengths?
So you say, can I ask clarifying, you said engaging staff?
Hold it up. Yeah, so that staff is engaging amongst their interactions.
Yeah, I would say like the strength is that the staff, faculty staff are incredibly caring. And if you got that already, I missed it. But.
No, we were just like talking about that along with, yeah.
Okay. How about opportunities? Where do you see the opportunities for the district?
We were talking about ESSER funds, geographical curricular integration. Did I say it right?
Yes.
Somebody tell me what that means.
We're talking like sharing resources with other districts, so that way we might offer Latin, and maybe there's students in Proctor, West Rutland that want Latin, so we'd have a camera or whatever, some sort of, so that the kids in the other districts, we can share curriculum, and maybe they do a course that we don't offer that our kids could take, and it could be a sharing of curriculum.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We have a transportation district, which is kind of along the lines of what you were just saying about curriculum integration.
We talked about, we already have the model for Stafford. Why can't we do more than just have Stafford as a standalone, which we do? Why can't we do like a transportation district so we all save money and the other districts save money and we can all work together?
Okay. So you're talking, when you say transportation, you're talking about student transportation?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And we have opportunities for training, diversity, equity, inclusion training.
For students, for staff, for board?
My idea was for everybody, students and adults.
And community.
And community.
And community. Yep.
Okay, so you foresee the school could play a leadership role for the entire community in that respect. Okay. Anybody want to react to any of that? Anybody have other thoughts for opportunities that are just right there for the picking? Or maybe not just right there, but a little hidden? Yeah, Allison?
I think better alignment through and continuity throughout our schools.
You mean 2 elementaries maybe aren't aligned?
Right, and then just going up through, our kids go through a lot of transitions through a lot of different buildings, versus, like the old K through 6 model, and to try and develop some continuity, a lot of times at those breaks, there seems to be more disruptions, and so something along those lines.
Okay, so there's some evidence of learning loss in the transition?
Yeah, potentially, or, they're going from smaller setting to larger settings and, different groupings. And we have, there's a lot of transitions for the kids. And, there could be 5, 6 grade classrooms, and so they're not making necessarily the same connections with students, their peers across the years. And I just think and it happens, at other levels too, from onto the middle school, and the middle school onto the high school, and just something that I think could be leveraged.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll bounce back here to the administrators with aspirations. I gotta tell you, I'm impressed. They were cooking on that list. Now, I grant you, it's a large group, but they were just going. So, where do you stand? And it's an interesting to have a different perspective from inside the system. What do you all see as streams?
We said student well-being, positive school culture, family engagement, staff well-being, a healthy community, inclusive, diverse programs, highly engaged students, learning and growing, teaming with community partners, 100% graduation rate with kids who are confident and equipped, safe, modern facilities with tech resources available for all, independent learners who are kind and compassionate, and environments and interactions rich with dignity.
That's a beautiful list.
Good job, Carrie.
Anybody else have any aspirations for your students or your district that you would like to add to that list? Or clarification on any of those items?
Yeah, the staff well-being, is that in the culture that we're living in today? Like, kind of elaborate on the staff well-being. Like, how do you see that if we could inspire to have everybody well, what are you looking for? Talking like overall wellness? Yeah, like is it your overall wellness? Is it the overall being, it's hard because, right, COVID brought a lot of health stuff onto all of us in the sense of our mental health. So is the aspiration that everybody feels comfortable and confident going in, or that everybody feels like they're going to work and they feel that they're in a safe and healthy environment? A little bit.
The whole thing.
All of the above. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Let me just also chime in. I said this over dinner to Hurley and Bill, and it's really true. I do not hawk VSBA events. That's not my gig. But we have a couple of really meaningful events coming up in the next few weeks that I just want to alert you to. Make sure you're aware of. The first of them, which is next Thursday and Friday, is the annual conference. It's being done virtually this year, and it is very simplified. We have a keynote speaker on Thursday whose specialty is culture, climate. He is a superintendent in New York State, and he has just written a book called Culture of Love. So that's his topic. And on Friday morning, we have a keynote speaker who is a psychologist at Harvard. Her topic is, well, it sounds really esoteric when you use her title, but basically she's a specialist in communication to diffuse the angst that comes with discussion with people with different viewpoints from your own, so that you can have meaningful collaboration even if you disagree. And so I just want to highlight those because they speak to that climate issue that you raised. And also on November 16th, we're hosting a webinar that evening. I think it's either 5 to 6:30 or 6 to 7:30 on November 16th. And that's about managing contentious board meetings. And while it's probably mostly directed to the chairs, it's certainly open to everybody. And I would encourage you to think, if you're available, encourage you to sign up. It's free, register for it and attend if you can, because we've got attorneys presenting and it's going to speak to what you can and can't do and how. So those are just two events that speak really to that climate issue, and I didn't want to forget to mention them. How about results?
How about it, Kevin?
You want me to read, Kevin? Or you good?
Sure, go ahead.
Wow, that water should have spilled 3 times.
Right. Data, and what we talked about underneath that would be attendance, enrollment, and test scores, behaviors, both positive, negative, and challenging, staff retention and morale, and the employee service satisfaction on a yearly basis, superintendent evaluation, community/parent satisfaction, safety and security, and quality of buildings and grounds.
That's a great list. I might add to your attendance, enrollment, test scores, graduation rate.
Thank you, yeah. Oh, that did came up.
And it came up over here too, right, 100%. I love that notion. Anybody have other results that you would like to see that would be good measures of success, how you know you're achieving?
Fun.
So,
Fun?
Fun.
Fun.
Fun. Yeah, fun.
Fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should be an
What about
organ-
fun?
What about it? What? Yeah.
I would actually also say college retention rates.
College retention, yeah. There's data that suggests that a lot of Vermont high school graduates start college and don't finish.
We were just talking about it.
And I also was hearing on the radio on my way down here that nationally and locally as well, college, I think UVM is an anomaly, but by and large, the college population is shrinking. The pandemic has really taken a hit on kids and their plans for the future. Okay, so
Although, isn't it up this year?
UVM is.
Okay.
Freshman admissions. But
Admissions.
community colleges are significantly down.
Right, and they're sort of anchors in the communities. So what are the roles in goal setting? Everybody in the system has a piece of this, okay? So the school board sets the district goals based on input from all the stakeholders, or in this case, when we're working short-term, your understanding of what the stakeholders are needing. Then that goes to the superintendent and key administrators to focus on those goals, figure out strategies, and provide indication on progress to the board ultimately, but then to pass from central office administration to the principals and other building level folks who implement those strategies to achieve the goals, and teachers who are on the front line to really carry out the action steps. And then the teachers are going to give feedback to the principals, are going to give feedback to the central office, to administration, and back to the board. So it's a continuous cycle. We're setting a goal, we're trying to make it happen, we're seeing evidence that it is happening, or maybe that it isn't. We're not moving the needle on that particular thing. Why not? Maybe the strategy's faulty, maybe we need more money to pay for more people to make that happen. So there's lots of different reasons, but that's the sort of cycle. So everybody's involved at some level in this cycle. And so I'm really glad you have your administrators here today, so you have their input, because ultimately the board does set those goals. But you folks are on the ground. So it's a nice partnership. So for our purposes today, we're going to sort of take a thick slice through different kinds of goals. You can have goals for your board, and we talked about that last time, right? You can have a goal that this year your board is going to work better together. And what's that going to look like, right? So board operations, board procedures, you develop protocols maybe that everybody buys in on. It's for you, Hurley. And so if everybody's buying in on something that you developed together, you've made progress, because that's not where you've been up until now. So board goals. District goals set by the board, often in consultation with superintendent and administrators, provide direction for students, for the money, right, for the big pieces, the big chunks that make a school system. The buildings, if there are facilities issues, and if you know that you are struggling in some areas of student performance or having enough alternatives for the different learning needs, then maybe that rolls in there. And then we're going to sort of downplay this one today, goals for the superintendent, which really come in the superintendent evaluation process. And I think we talked about that last time. And it's the same thing. If you don't have a goal, you don't know what you're measuring against, so you don't know if you're getting there. And so with an annual review for superintendent, you need to all agree on what the goals are. So the superintendent is responsible for the goals for the district, and that's measured in the evaluation, but individually there may also be goals for the superintendent. And so that would get looped in there. So we may hit on some of those tonight, and that's fine, but we're going to sort of table those. Okay? All right. So now, I would very much like it if one of you from each of the tables that has flip charts can put them somewhere where we can see them, which is going to be a challenge. I guess maybe on that wall. Yeah, if you can.
I was gonna take a Sharpie, I was gonna do the one.
You got it, right?
Careful with cords.
I know.
They're
It's
dangerous.
so dangerous.
Well, I kept on feeling something rubbing on me, and I was like, sweating.
Disconnect us.
Okay.
That's somebody's soccer scarf.
I love this. I get to play with all my props today.
Thanks.
Rutgers.
That's right.
So if you would now, and you have that as sort of a backdrop. I can see that now. Individually or collaboratively, your call. I'd like you to think about and commit to sticky notes for all time, no, for tonight. What are your priorities for your school district in the coming year and a half? That's our time frame, right? What are your priorities? Are there things on those lists that you want to prioritize to strengthen? You know, some of those strengths maybe get a booster shot, you know?
How do I fit that on?
And maybe some of these opportunities have more skin on those bones that you want to be able to hang a goal on. Maybe you need more data, different data. Maybe you need to figure out how you're going to get that so that you know how you're doing. And your aspirations, are those the most important things to you right now? So is there anything you're doing that you ought to really make the big priority for yourselves?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So would it matter? Because, I mean, at this point in time, we have, you know, we're in different positions in our terms.
Right.
So I'm at 3 years, or some at 2, and there's some at 1. So, Hurley, I heard that.
Are we talking district-wide?
District-wide.
Okay.
She's saying year and a half.
So like, I know at this table, we're at, essentially all 3 of that.
Does it matter?
No.
Are your goals for the district?
We're a board.
Not necessarily, individual, yes, but so if we're doing this, individually, no. My goals for the next 3 years are different than theirs necessarily would be her goal with less than a year on the board.
Why? District goals. These are district
If we're
goals.
doing it individually, though.
Right, but I don't understand how,
Why would my goal be the same as hers?
because your goal is about the district and your students. And
We're doing
that's
it
not gonna
individually.
change just because you go off the board. I don't think.
But I can have goals for 3 years,
I think recovery.
although I'm done in like
This isn't
months.
what you want to accomplish. This is your vision of what,
I understand that, but my vision is different than her vision. So
Right.
each individual vision is different, so if we're, okay, never mind.
was it?
I understand that, but the point of it being.
I will read these to the best of my ability. If handwriting fails, we'll get there somehow. Thank you. Thank you. Accepting supportive culture. Academic recovery from COVID. Recovery, most opportunistic use of ESSER funds to address losses and stimulate transformation. Did I get that correctly?
You did.
Okay.
I was going to say, that had to be the administrators. Had to be the administrators on that one.
On one sticker.
Re-engaged students. So I'm going to say that one kind of goes with academic recovery, right? Layer 1 supports. That's got to have come from,
I think Carrie's,
Pam.
it's Carrie's handwriting.
Oh, okay.
can you explain this?
Intervention services, right from in the
Okay.
classroom.
I see positive climate, positive culture. I'm putting them over here with the accepting culture. K-12 curriculum written, assessed, and taught. Do we need more definition around curriculum? Is that what I'm understanding?
Tier 1. Put it with layer 1.
Which one?
That can go with layer 1.
Aha, okay, thank you. Respect, collaborate with all. Is that a
Climate.
culture? Diverse pathways for learning for all children. Goal, focus on social emotional curriculum for K-12. Put that with climate?
No.
Curriculum. Curriculum question.
Different.
Staff recruitment. Are you understaffed right now per budget, or are you? I'm seeing a lot of nodding. Okay, sorry.
Yes.
That was me. We got improved energy efficiency. Modernized classrooms and buildings, so this is a facilities. Staff wellness. That's a recurring theme. 100% graduation. Personalized learning. That would go with diverse pathways.
Yes.
With that.
The energy in the building?
Huh?
The energy in the building might go together?
Yep. Orange.
Your 2 orange ones.
These?
Yeah.
Improve energy efficiency and modernize buildings. Okay, thank you. Uh-oh.
Run away.
I paid for the good students.
What's the password here? Do you remember what the password is?
Staff wellness, 100% graduation. Individualized learning plans for all students. Staff recruitment for high needs areas. K-12 foreign language, that's a curriculum, but a whole different one. More work, study, hands-on credit hours. Can we put that one with the individualized learning plans? Thank you. Climate. Equity, safe space for all kids. Student recovery.
I think the equity can go with the, a lot of things in the climate.
The climate.
I think that one may be a little bit different.
Yeah. But some of the others had
Well, the
safe and
collaborate with all.
supportive and collaborative and, yeah. I think that's all getting at equity.
Equity, I think, is different to me. How do the rest of you feel about it?
I agree.
What am I holding up? Teacher, TD on curriculum, instruction longitudinal. So this, I'm gonna, and here's mental health for staff and staff wellness. I'm putting those all together because I think there's a staff message in here, okay? Pre-K and public health, is that two separate ones on one sticky?
They go together.
They go together. Okay, can somebody elaborate on this one?
That's where it starts.
Pardon me?
That's where it starts.
That's where it starts. Okay. So, and what is the status of your pre-K right now? You have pre-K in your schools and your buildings?
We have Act 166. It's a shotgun. We don't have any school-based pre-K.
No, okay. Okay, so COVID management, is that recovery at this point?
Hopefully.
I hope sometime. Safety, I'm gonna put with climate. Return to face-to-face parents and admin. So that's also recovery, right? Robust enriching after school. Equity, pre-K, foreign language. Okay, so let's so we've got climate. We've got recovery. Whoops.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it will.
Let's see. Equity.
I was using a better word.
Staff wellness.
The paper's a good paper. It's gonna be expensive.
Use Ezra money. I've got a pair of scissors. Put a brownie.
Mind if I just call this intervention rather than level 1?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Intervention's okay. And is that really part of recovery or no?
No.
Okay, thank you. Staff wellness. Oh. Okay. Is there anything missing that we had up here?
I think the pre-K and community health, right?
Community health?
Wasn't there was something along with that one?
Public health, yeah.
The public health, yeah.
Thank you.
Can I say, I want to, where you have intervention, that encompassed an awful lot. And for me, Tier 1 or Level 1 instruction and intervention are two different things. High quality Level 1 instruction negates the need for intervention.
I'm sorry, high quality level 1?
High quality Level 1 instruction negates the need for intervention.
Okay.
So those are two different things. If our goal is 100% graduation, then our Level 1 or Tier 1 instruction is world class and we don't need intervention. Although it's unlikely, that's got to be our goal.
The goal could be to eliminate the need for intervention.
10-4.
So tier 1 excellence? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
If that makes it work, yeah.
Okay.
I think they're two different things, that's all.
Okay, thank you.
One other thing, the return to the parent and staff face-to-face is very crucial.
That's part of recovery. Okay. Okay, so we caught most of that here? Good. Let's go over here.
What should turn in?
Okay, so I have more civil discourse, focus on children, collaborative decision-making, focus on students, respect and collaborate for all, improved listening and understanding of differences. Can I go with civil discourse? 100% graduation. I would put that one back over here.
While you're heading that way, can I just mention that there were many comments about curriculum, and I don't see curriculum on it.
I tried to capture them. How about
The PLP.
I've got PLP, I've got world language.
I think PLP is different than curriculum.
Yes, it is. I agree. I agree. But curriculum is actually not the board's work.
No, you're on district. I was asking on this sheet.
Right. Right. So talk to me more.
There were, on many of the sticky notes on this page, there were comments about curriculum, but I don't see that reflected up
They all got lumped with the personal learning.
Before we get too much farther
Thank you. Yeah.
That's all.
I think all the pathways and stuff got lumped with the personal learning. So it might not be the best
So maybe just sort of
moniker for that, but.
as a placeholder, I don't know. I just.
Well, it's pretty broad, but okay, we'll do it for now. We're going to narrow this down.
Longitudinal. That's what they were asking.
So, okay, back over here. We've got focus on students, collaboration, civil discourse. Can somebody tell me what you mean by financial?
Yeah,
Budget.
that's like the budget, we're the ones,
Fiduciary responsibility?
yeah.
Okay, is that a goal that is not currently, are we trying to improve on something, keep something?
I think it's more be more aware and improve on, you know, the financial ramifications in the community.
Okay.
Should be ongoing.
It's every year, right? Every year we have to revisit it. Isn't our financial
Yeah, every year we
obligation
have
to the
do
school?
budget and all of that stuff, because the budget is under us.
We're also supporting the new student weighting system legislation, and that's a real goal to get that passed.
That's true.
So like
Okay.
That I'm surprised in.
community impact as far as what we.
That's also part of the conference next week.
Yeah, that should definitely be a board goal.
So advocacy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And to those of you who were elementary teachers at one time in your career, I apologize right now for my handwriting.
Nothing compared to other people. Nothing.
Right.
Anything else here on the board? Oh, somebody said safety. Can you tell me what you mean by safety? Do you mean it being a safe place for board members?
I'll sign up.
Yeah, we just have to jump down.
I'm assuming, I didn't write that.
What's it?
Somebody put down, it actually is on the same note as financial in a different handwriting, if that matters to anybody. I'm curious what that means.
What does it say?
Safety.
Oh, because I put it on that one and then I
Gotcha.
realized it was, so I just threw it on one.
So can you elaborate on that at the board meeting, or on the board list?
Just as a board, just focusing, just making sure that the district kind of like goes, they somewhat tie together, that the district is having the safety of the staff and students as a priority.
Okay. I'm going to put that over on district though, and I would kind of lump that in with culture.
It should be both.
This is really board operations, what's going on at the board, for the board.
It doesn't include the board's oversight role?
No, because it's overseeing the district. Okay, so those are goals for the district, really. And the board is going to oversee it and make sure that the goals are clearly communicated and that they're monitoring any progress on them.
Thank you.
Okay? And now, just to keep Bill in the loop here, we'll go back here.
Oh, Mr. Bill.
So for superintendent goals, wellness. Somebody's really keen on 100% graduation.
Yep.
That really is a district goal, but just for
Good thing you have all that extra time, huh? You can tutor on the side.
All my kids.
Okay, these are really quite lovely. Wellness is here, and I assume we're talking about the superintendent's wellness. That's right. Which apparently includes high-powered espresso, daily, chocolate,
Shopping.
clams,
Garlic. Himself.
and good food at meetings.
You can do this.
Here, here.
Well, Bill, you certainly wouldn't want to go to Pam's because she didn't even give me coffee.
Really seriously when I was talking about tabling these, didn't you? And respectful personal interactions. Continue that. Okay, clams.
Espresso
No, well,
clams?
no, well, we don't have oysters.
That just sounds gross.
The clams, by the way, need to have garlic, but I'm not going to write that down.
He does that too.
Yeah. Okay?
Do it all.
So I think we can all agree that we can kind of keep those just for the humor of it. So one more thing, and then we're going to take a break. I am going to give you each a strip of sticky dots. These are your votes. And actually, I hate to do this to all of you back in the peanut gallery back there, but this is for the board, okay?
Can we hike a little bit?
What about respectful?
We're going Don Mania back here. Where do we get these dots?
I'll give you dots. You can put them on each other if you want. Please each take one. The colors are immaterial.
We could tell you, but we're not allowed.
Clearly they know what this is about. I think
Colors don't mean anything.
What we think is the most important, the true.
It's after 6 at night.
I mean, if I were a betting woman, that would be seven votes.
You board members, you each just got, you each just got a strip of 7 dots. These are your votes. Let's just confine it to these 2 charts, okay? Vote for your priority.
Can we put more than one sticker on a vote?
Hold on.
Okay.
You may, if there is one, if you're the person who keeps putting down 100% graduation, and that is really it for you, you can give that all 7 if you want to. You can split them up however you want to, you get 7 votes. And what I'm looking for is your priorities for your school and your board, for your district, for the next.
All right, you gotta zoom in with that cameraman so you can see where they're putting it down.
Sure.
You know, I know.
List them all. Sooner or later. Literally like this.
Like, I'm glad you're here, because I'm like, I'm going to see him and I'm having a
You're finished with the small group work. Please feel free to sit wherever you like.
We can go back home. Yeah.
So where are we going with this next? We're gonna, the goal here is to come away with 3 to 5 goal statements that really reflect what's behind some of these.
Is this yours?
So I took a moment
I want a piece of it.
and tallied them up. I think these colors make it fairly visible even from a distance. So over here, there were 6 with focus on students and 8 with civil discourse. 5 for the advocacy piece, and 1 for collaboration. I think really these two are probably intended to be together. And over here, 13 about climate. That's a winner. 9 about recovery. I'd call that a winner. 8 with equity. 7, 3. Now why did I count that as 1? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 1, and the numbers are small after that. So the big winners, I don't know how you want to call it, but the ones that you all identified as being the highest priorities are the climate in the district. And you probably could throw the board climate right in there with that, right? And make that a single goal. Or, you know, an overarching goal with 2 pieces to it. And recovery is a huge one, okay? And you could stop there, frankly. Or maybe throw in equity. And then you're looking at a really big chunk of work with some really lofty goals. And now we want to drill down and get a little bit more specific about what those goals really mean. What is it you're looking to achieve with the climate? So goal statements, which is where we're going next, typically they reflect and embody the vision, which we're TBD, right? You want to make sure they're realistic. When somebody asked me a question just before the break, what happens if I have a goal that's not measurable? The results aren't measurable. And sometimes that's the case, right? Like, how do you measure civil discourse? Somebody going to tally how many times people raise their voice? I don't think so, right? But you're going to know.
What page does the article about the school board meeting show up on?
Oh, yeah. Okay. There's a good, interesting metric.
Yeah.
That's how we can measure.
But I think you also just know when it comes to something like that, right? Check in periodically on board self-evaluation is going to answer that for you also. And you want to make sure, as we're developing these goals, that your administration is involved. You set the goals, but when it, can you not see that, Bill? Sorry.
Well,
One of his goals is to get new glasses.
Yeah.
Put that on the list there.
The small text I was reading.
Time frame and available resources. And down here it says, those broad goal statements are to be done in collaboration with administration, because the next phase after you have your goal statement is to figure out what is your evidence that you need to see that will help you know whether you're moving in the right direction. And your superintendent, your administration is in a position to help you figure that out, because they know what data is available, right? And what data isn't available. And maybe you, I think this group over here was talking about a community survey earlier, right? And so maybe that's the way you're going to check on improvements in climate. A student survey, a community survey, right? So we'll talk about what those indicators are, and then it's up to administration to create strategies that are going to get implemented to get to these goals. Does that process make sense? So when we're talking about goals, these are really the key questions for board members to be asking themselves, asking yourselves. Is it within the board's purview? And I think that was kind of where I was going with the curriculum question, right? That's really outside the board's lines. And so for them to establish that as a goal is a little bit, it's difficult because they can't influence the outcomes. Is it specific and clear? So we want to, as we take these phrases and turn them into goal statements, we want to make sure that you really all understand what the intent is. Is it measurable? What evidence is going to help us know where we're going? Is it actionable? And often that's a budget question. If we need to let go of something else to focus on this, what are we going to let go of? Is this that important that we're willing to do that, right? I mean, the world language example. If you're jam-packed now and you want to add in a whole new piece of curriculum, what's going to go? That's a big question. You can't just keep piling it on. Yes, Erin.
So that's mine, K-12 foreign language. And we talk about cross-curriculum, and you guys help me with the terminology maybe, but using, math and English and math and social studies and English and using our curriculums integrate. Thank you. So integrate the classes. So foreign language is known, as well as music and so forth, and math to stimulate children and students. So to look at the curriculum as a holistic, integrated method, as well as K-12 foreign language, maybe we help that level 1, tier there, and then we see that progress. But, I don't think we have to get rid of to get. I think it's a matter of how we approach and manage our resources.
Okay, all of what you just said, not all of it, but a lot of what you just said about the value of world languages in an integrated curriculum and all of that is really
100%.
Their work.
100%. But the board's work is to say, we want to strive to get to these goals. And this is something that, how do we do it? Absolutely, that's their work. But we as a board, as a community board representing the community, can say and look how other communities may thrive and how this community could thrive doing things a bit differently or from a different perspective.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. But starting to pull the pieces apart, to pull the feathers off the chicken, that's where it gets a little bit.
I understand,
okay.
But
we're good.
I don't know how to put your chicken.
And is it consistent with what else you're doing? Or do you have something that's like totally off the wall relative to everything else the district is doing? And how are you going to integrate that?
Can you imagine?
That's going to be a challenge. And is it time bound, right? So if you had, the example I would like to, well, actually, I think I have examples right there. No, I don't. So what I'd like to do now is sort of a group thing. And if somebody is willing to be scribe, that would be great. Thank you. No, right in place. Right in place. In place.
Not on chart paper?
Nope, not on chart paper.
She's out of that.
I was going to say, yeah, she's a teacher. She's got to have chart paper.
I was going to say, does anybody have any regular paper?
Here you go.
No.
markers.
All right. Colored markers, different colors, please.
Different color markers.
Okay, everybody pass your Sharpies over here.
Nice blue one over here.
I have the same things if you would.
Thanks so much.
Oh, you got different colors.
Giving Pam all of our markers, apparently.
That's what I said. Careful.
So what
Let's not get crazy.
doing here is trying to define what we mean by a good climate. What does that mean in one sentence? What are we aspiring to with respect to climate in the district? Is that a central office climate? Is that in the buildings? Is that, we'll talk about the board separately. What does that mean? We had a lot of stickies to give some. Yep, they start. But ultimately, we want to get this into a sentence. Okay, so
Did you get a text?
here are the stickies. We have safety, we have climate, respect and collaborate with all. Positive climate, positive school climate, accepting, supportive culture. Re-engaged students, no, that's academic covered. Okay? So those don't say a whole lot, really.
We support a culture of dignity. Thank you, Rob, wherever you are.
3 guesses.
Of dignity and belonging.
Okay, and how is that a goal? How is that actionable?
Equity, yes, there would be a survey and finding out how people feel now, I think that came up earlier, and then analyzing the survey and coming up with actionable steps.
To do what?
To develop a culture of dignity where everyone is treated with dignity.
Okay.
So I think when we're talking about the climate, I think that we're talking, sometimes having the environment, having the level of the environment kind of brought down to a respectable level where everybody feels that they're being heard, whether it be the teachers to the administration or the administration to the board, or however that may be. But the climate of the district as a whole needs to be where everybody can feel safe enough talking to each other, either among your different schools or among the schools to the to the higher administration, and really kind of bringing that climate to a level where there's a level of dignity, of respect of everybody within the facilities.
Okay, so I've heard dignity, I've heard respect, I've heard safety. Yeah, show me your please.
But I think that comes from the tone that's being set by, in whatever setting that we're in. So if it's the tone of the administration to the students or teachers, or the tone of the board, the tone is being set, which gives the feeling forward. So I feel like it's important to be mindful of the tone that's being set. That produces the climate.
Yeah, the climate is a complex thing. Tone is certainly part of it. Actions are part of it. Behaviors are part of it. Expectations and communication of those expectations are all part of it. In order for kids to feel safe at school, they have to know that they are the priority. And how do we make them know that? How can that get communicated on a daily, regular, all the time, I belong here kind of basis? That's all part of it. Yeah, Hurley?
Accountability, because I think with climate there has to be accountability so that people can see, that helps keep that climate going forward, that if someone jeopardizes that climate, there's accountability for them.
And making that the same across the board, so that if say the high school feels like there's different levels, and like the teachers aren't being heard, and yet the administration thinks something else, you want that consistency in there along those lines.
Okay. Yeah. And then we'll come back to
in my mind, I was thinking more climate obviously applies to everyone, but so that students can feel included and supported with however they identify, and recognize that differences exist, but support and highlight and leverage those differences.
So somewhere in that goal statement, we want to have the word every, right? Every student, every faculty member, everyone, right? That's what I'm hearing? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
because
very simplified, but yeah.
I do want to keep that equity piece separate. I think that's worthwhile, because I think the climate right now in a lot of schools, and I can't speak to yours obviously, is kids are afraid. Kids are just afraid of everything. They've just been home for a year, or the better part of a year, and their whole world has been turned upside down. Nothing's familiar. Parents may be in different employment situations than they had been, and that has ramifications for the kids. So kids need to really feel like they belong at school. And I would say that's probably at the heart of most climate discussions when we're talking about school district climate. But I welcome your input on that also. I think for the purpose of defining or developing a goal statement, what we really are looking for is to define what good climate means, healthy climate, what's built into that. So we talked about safety, we talked about dignity, right? We talked about tone.
Respect.
Respect. Charlene?
For me, I think what it involves is when you set this goal statement or mission statement or whatever, say it's to do with climate, then, the next thing you need to have is commitment from all parties to commit to that goal. So everybody's buying into it. So you can set the tone that we are all committed to this. So it sets the tone, which can then trickle down to the culture of everybody following that and feeling like, okay, yes, we feel safe because everybody's committed.
And somewhere that goal of the boards gets transferred to administration and through the buildings and to everybody in each of the buildings.
Because you can ask yourself, does this accomplish the goal that we have for culture? Is this in line with that? And if it is, then great. If not, then figure something else out.
So Allison, I think maybe, thank you. And what you were saying before, I think maybe among those other words, respect and dignity, inclusivity.
Yeah, inclusivity and support, and not just for our students, our teachers as well, and other employees.
Okay. So does anybody want to take a stab, any wordsmiths here who want to take a stab at wrapping that all together into, go ahead, Erin.
Ask you a question, it's not a stab at the wordsmithing.
Okay.
Are you trying to replace our current mission and vision? Is that the goal tonight?
No.
Okay.
First of all,
I'm just trying to check, because it's very similar to some of the other collaborative work we've done to come to what we have.
okay, well, I think I said to you last time, I have not been able to find a vision or mission statement anywhere in your district.
Well, it's on every paper we get, so.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I was actually just looking at, we have existing board goals too that are very similar, so.
Okay. It's not
I just wondered what the goal
easily
was here.
findable on your website.
Yeah.
We can have many goals, many mission
Exactly.
statements.
So this is, thank you. Let's differentiate a goal statement from a mission statement, right? A goal statement is something we're working towards specifically.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because a lot of the language is overlapping, and I just wanted to verify that no one's confusing that, and
Okay, so
understand the mission.
So I think, the next item up for discussion is going to be recovery. And I think climate probably suffered, right, during that 18-month period when the world was on its heels. And so they're not completely isolated. There's academic recovery, which needs to happen, but there's also the social emotional and the community recovery that needs to happen within the schools. And that's, I think, the crux of what we're talking about with respect to climate. Yeah. Am I getting that right? Okay. So, you're not going to take a stab at it, huh?
Well, I think with what you just said, I think using the recovery efforts that we have been allowed, and we've already done so much work in this, so for us to kind of I don't want to overstep the work that's already been done either as the board, because our district is doing fabulously in this. So to use the recovery money in order to create a new and inviting or inclusive climate within the district among students, staff, and peers. That's all I got.
Okay. Did you get that?
Everyone feels included by,
What?
You said student, staff,
Using
and
the
peers.
recovery, do you want me to start again, or?
Sure.
Using the recovery money, I didn't know who was writing.
Well, are we using?
I thought we were, right, thank you.
Yeah, and
why I didn't write.
when you start with using, that's not a goal. That's an action.
Okay, well, the goal is, we've already set the goal to use the money, so you just want a statement on the climate?
Yeah.
So to maintain, so basically to retain a inviting inclusive climate for students, peers, faculty, staff, and community alike. Something like that. So everybody comes, you know, with the availability to ask the question and get an answer.
Okay, and you said retain that. Others are saying there's work to be done.
To foster.
Well, I think, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
And I
there's
think
work
the
to be
money part was where I got the retain, was because the work for the recovery, the ESSER funds, because you said the climate's coming from COVID. So we have, you know, there's this money is out there for recovery, and the climate's been issued and complicated. Exactly. So my retention was just saying the work has been good and ongoing on the recovery. That was
Right,
all.
but that, we're talking about academic recovery, and that's a different focus, right?
Yeah,
And I think,
Can I take a shot at it?
I'll take a shot. I'll take a half shot. I'll do a half
1, 2,
sentence.
3.
I'll use one of the words in our mission vision somewhere.
Check your phone.
To cultivate an environment that supports every student, regardless of their background or, you know, personal.
Get more like phone.
Did you say all?
How about every? Yes, all, that's right. All students. All students,
That's what we have already.
staff, and families, because I think the families have to be part of the climate.
Read our, you can hear what we already have. What we have is what we're already talking about. This is why it's like repetitive. Yeah, one, I like that word.
I like the one.
One human family, baby.
Yeah, that's what.
Who's been there? Who's been to one human family?
Huh?
What do you mean, who's been to one?
Never seen that? Really? No one's been to Key West?
No. Yes. I don't remember it though, honestly.
At the end of Key West, there's this plaque that says one human family, and it's tiled, and it says it. It's beautiful. I posted it right after graduation. Because Dave Walker referred to it. But I knew about it anyways, and like I was like, oh my God, I love that. So yeah, one human family.
So, Scott, can you repeat? It sounded like there was a lot of people liking what you said. Could you repeat that?
I don't remember what I said. Providing an inclusive environment.
I guess you gotta find a sugar daddy. You gotta find a sugar mama to go.
Who you are.
All members of a community.
Yeah.
What was the second, to do what?
I wouldn't even put that.
No, I'd say all. I agree.
No, I agree. You're targeting us
No.
a group if you do them individually.
Are we,
All we do in this unit.
then should we say as a district?
Or within the Rutland City Public Schools, that's what we are.
Yeah.
There you go.
We can't sugarcoat it.
But what was the verb that we used to create or
Rutland
to
City Public
promote?
Schools fosters an inviting, inclusive environment cultivated for all.
I think promotes is stronger.
Yeah,
To promote.
Instead of fosters?
but it's a goal though, so if our goal is just to promote it, or our goal is to be it, so, but also but I think that at some level, we're narrowing in on the inclusion without remembering that we're talking about the climate.
Right, so I wanted to add something to that. So I was also wondering, we have where everyone feels heard and, you know, there's a respectful tone through actions and behavior. We also talked about accountability. So it's not just the inclusive piece, it was all those other
Yeah.
pieces if we want to include those.
And I almost think what you've said about the inclusive piece might become the goal statement for the equity goal.
Right.
Ma'am, I'm sorry. I forget you're Miss Susan. How many students there?
Okay, Allison's had her hand up for a while, and then we'll go over this to you.
So I had promote inclusive, supportive climate where all are treated with dignity and respect.
There we go.
Sounds good.
Sold.
Does that work for everyone?
Say it again, Allison. Promote inclusive, supportive climate where all are treated with dignity and respect.
Works for me.
Did you write that down somewhere, Allison? You pass it?
I wonder, rather than all are treated, the only thing I might want to throw
Equity
out there is, what if it were to be where everyone treats each other with?
Yeah.
Right? Because then it's irrespective of your role in the district, right? You're a school board member, you're a kindergartner, you're still on that level of respect, right?
Not putting mutual in there.
Okay,
Same idea.
yeah, okay. That's, and that makes it a little bit more actionable also, action-oriented.
Climate.
Of mutual respect.
So I was just actually going to ask administration or staff if they had any insight to sort of the climate, and also, you know, there's a lot of staff here, so I don't want to insult anybody either. Like personally, I feel like you all really do a great job maintaining your groups and everything. So, I mean, I don't know that one day necessarily there was ever a question in my mind any student was ever safe. So I just want you to know that. Just because, yeah, I think you all do a nice job. You're welcome. And any clarity you want to add in on these topics to help us understand, please do.
Yeah, absolutely, thank you. Yeah. So can you reread that one more time?
So our goal is to promote an inclusive, supportive climate of mutual dignity and respect.
Okay.
What did you say before, Susan?
I don't remember.
I like each other. You like each other. You like each other.
Where all are treated with mutual dignity and respect, or you said treat
Each other.
Oh. Everyone treats each other with dignity and respect.
Which I like better because it does cross the.
Betty, could you read that for me, please?
Promote an inclusive, supportive climate where everyone treats each other with dignity and respect.
Oh.
And does that cover safety that was a concern earlier?
No.
I was thinking that part's missing. So when I think of climate, I think, or if I hear, you know, we're going to do something about climate, I then kick into, okay, how can I increase a feeling of security, whether it's physical or emotional? How can I increase people feeling capable and valued?
Valued.
Inclusive, safe, supportive climate.
How about that, throw it in the middle?
I like that.
I like that.
Just do a little A.
Climate be safe.
Safe? Oh, safe.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's a primary, number one responsibility of administrators is a safe school. Right, so I think when you talk about supportive climate, you're already creating a safe environment. How can we support it if it's not safe?
And you guys as administrators and stuff, you guys are the ones that are living this day in and day out. So Susan, if you feel, I mean, I think those are good points to make, that if you're trying to, the safety point, I think that's big and should be included somehow.
And what Scott's saying is it's implicitly included once you're talking about the respectful and.
There are goals, right? You know what
Right.
you know what that is, it doesn't have to be.
Exactly. I feel like maybe it's a little semantics, but we're kind of discussing it now. We all understand what our common goal is here
Right.
to get these words down. And I think we kind of know what that encompasses, but I think what she was saying was, I really like that a lot.
Yeah, I do too.
While I believe safety is definitely a huge issue, and that's something that I feel very strongly in, I believe us as a district, whether it's the board level or the administration level, has failed our students in a way that and it's continuing. That is, I mean, a lot of us know different situations, and it started in the middle school about 5 years ago, and it's now into the high school. The safety of our students needs to become a bigger priority to all of us than what it is, and it doesn't matter what the level.
Can you define safety in that context? Physical safety?
I'll go with physical because I feel like the big part of what the coming out of COVID is students' mental, but physical needs to be a big issue, and that has been neglected for years. And that's me as a parent who has dealt with this issue for years, and it's one of the reasons I ran for the board and have witnessed my own issues within the district within the last week. The safety of our students needs to become probably one of our, I would say, the top 2 priorities in this district on several different levels. And it's just very disheartening that the administration seems to be sweeping a lot of it under the rug. And I'm not going to directly say any one person, but as a safety, that needs to be one of our primary goals of whether you want to use COVID as a reasoning for it. It's not a reason. Safety was an issue in this district well before COVID. And for any of the administrators who were involved in that to say it's a COVID issue, then you're doing a disservice to your teachers and your staff.
Brittany?
So I just, along the topic of student safety, also teacher safety as well, I think it's important that as a general whole, that with COVID the way it's been, and I think it goes to the climate as well, to kind of tie that back in, that the general safety of everybody right now is on edge. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate everything that y'all are doing. But to make sure that you guys feel safe in your environment and the kids feel just as safe as well. I know that we're working through issues within each of our schools, and I know that we're currently working on one between middle and high school due to COVID. But I think that part of the climate and part of bringing that whole respect and dignity and everybody just coming on that, going back to that same level of respect, we need to get there and not pin students against teachers, teachers against students, you guys against the board. We need to be all on that same level of dignity and respect. And I think that, Pam, I think the last one, including what Susan had said before on the safety of making sure that the kids are...
I just want to point out that I didn't say safety, I said security.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm bringing this up. Security has a lot to do with perceptions of what's going on versus what's not going on, untruths and not truths, what you know, what you don't know, and trust.
Yeah.
I said security.
Yeah.
And it has a lot to do with relationships and beliefs of what's going on and efforts of what's going on and what we can control and what we can't. I said security.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but you
No, that's okay. It's Marie. Standing back here, just listening and watching, I reflect back to how you started this conversation 2 hours ago, with we're skipping steps to be able to do this tonight. When you're tackling something like climate, that's going to be problematic. I think through the conversations and what Allison and other people contributing, came up with a really good definition of climate. But what Suzanne was contributing was much more measurable and more of a goal. So if I can bring us back to what she said, not that I can repeat it, because I can't at this point, but there were measurable pieces in there. Feeling capable, feeling valued, feeling secure. Those can be measured, even if it's subjective versus objective, where a definition of climate can never be. So I just wanted to throw that in there for consideration.
Thank you. I'm coming back to that. Charlene?
Well, I just feel like they're all good points. I think we're all here for the same purpose, to move forward, with positive goals. And I think that there's a lot of things that we talked about, and those are the two top ones that we discussed. It'd be helpful if we could get maybe a couple of goals set tonight. But I feel like the conversation could go into 100 different directions, and I think maybe we could even tackle the safety discussion maybe as a separate goal if we wanted to do that, maybe, and instead of lumping it into the culture at this moment. Maybe we can just do the culture one and then recovery and see how that goes, and maybe we can set other goals just to kind of, we can agree to move forward with that maybe? I don't know.
I want to, I see your hand. I want to pick up on what Marie was just saying, though. It's Suzanne?
Yeah.
Can you repeat kind of what you said? Not verbatim?
Probably not. Which part?
Just about security and all that entails.
We live in an unsafe world. I cross Main Street and there's a potential that I'm going to meet a car or I'm going to step on something. We live in an unsafe world, but I can feel security that I have people around me that are taking the measures and have that I am being looked out for and cared for and protected, and that there are people that it's their job to keep me well. And that allows a child to be secure in a place of war Or in Kansas, when there's 55 tornadoes, I can't imagine living in Kansas, right? Okay? There can be a sense of security in a very unsafe situation. So we can't always control safety, but we can help our kids feel secure. So when I hear we have a climate issue here, I start looking at what are you worried about? What are you afraid of? How can I help you feel secure? And that's when I can make a difference in a building. That's where I make a difference with staff, and that's where I make a difference with kids. Okay. So that's why I pointed out. I didn't, you know what, I wasn't saying, like, I didn't say safety, but
No,
I think security is important. And it impacts climate. Because if you feel like you're in a place where you have no control.
But if you don't feel safe, then you don't feel secure.
Right. You're right. But I can't necessarily prevent the tornadoes or stop a war. But as an adult, I am going to do what I can to make a kid secure, and I'm going to look at all the ways I can make kids secure. Sometimes those two coincide. You know, picture a little Venn diagram. Sometimes it's the same thing. Sometimes it doesn't work.
So my question was going to be, so, you know, if we keep the more simplified goal, when we're actually assessing whether it's a SMART goal, would we be targeting some of these things as measures and how we would assess?
Right. So from a broad goal statement, that gets chunked down.
Yeah.
And security is certainly a component of that climate that's an important one to address. Am I paraphrasing you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And so how are we going to measure that? And by the way, I love everything you said about the security for students, but I think in the world that we're in today, and particularly the COVID environment, I'm going to extend that security to staff and faculty also. I think it's necessary right now. If you don't mind that liberty, to set that up for the district. Yeah, Hurley.
Going off what Suzanne was saying, it is perception. Having taught in a school where there was a major threat a few years ago, and the kids all said to me, you know, aren't you nervous, whatever. But I also, going to what Suzanne's saying, and the perception of it is that those around me, we comforted ourselves, you know, we built up that rapport so then we can show our kids also that rapport without really relying upon the administration. So there is something to be said about safety, and what Suzanne was saying is that perception, you know, every day a teacher walks into the building and you know, there could be a shooting, God forbid. But what I'm saying is that you have to give that perception to your students and to each other that it's going to be very successful. And I think that's what Suzanne was trying to say before. I think it's that part of that is that perception of safety, which then leads to a much better climate because the kids are feeling safe and secure because they have that perception. I'm not saying that there weren't days that I was shaking in my shoes going in, but I went in there because I felt safe because of those around me, because we had that perception of working together. And I think that's critical with climate and safety, to make sure that we're all working hand in hand together on the same page.
So, Suzanne, were you saying that instead of making this statement on the basis of what this will look like from an overall picture, that it should be based on how people feel?
I think we're talking about climate, and I don't want to sound like I'm saying safety is not important, but I'm saying as far as how do we address climate, then we make people feel secure. I mean, safety, you couldn't imagine how many kids I tell, when they say, oh, you're the principal, you're the big boss, I say, well, my job is, and I say this over and over, my job is to keep you safe and to help you learn, okay? So safety's a given across the board, but all I'm saying, I'm sorry if it's throwing it all up, all I'm saying is that if we're gonna make a goal to improve climate, we have to help people feel secure. A lot of people will feel more secure if they realize this building is safer, right?
But if we define our goal from the individual perspective rather than from the overseeing perspective, that may be more measurable.
Right, and thank you, because that's kind of what Allison was saying too. So we have this big climate goal, right? And then we need to narrow that down into measurable chunks. And so a student survey may be, that you do maybe 3 times a year or something, and to see if there's improvement in that sense of security. The key there, of course, is that you've got to craft the questions correctly in order to get at the essence of it, and then to ask the same questions.
And you could even do that for like attendance, because sometimes, if kids aren't safe at home, right? They come to us to feel safe, or to you all to feel safe. So we would want to, we could, as a measurable goal, you could see, if Johnny and Susie, brother and sister, don't, Susie stays home, Johnny comes to school, one is feeling safer at school where the other one doesn't feel that security of having that positive environment for them to go to. So that's something that we, not me, I'm very sorry, but as you all taking attendance, could measure on a yearly basis or even a quarterly basis if that were something that we wanted to establish, so that we knew that, Johnny and Susie were both secure in their environment enough to come to school every day, right? Because we have people who live in hotels, and they may feel more secure there than at the school. But if we make them feel safe and secure, they're gonna come every day and they're gonna get a hot lunch, so.
So my question then to you is,
yes.
Do you think that the board having reports on student attendance is going to be a reasonable measure of security?
No.
I don't.
No.
Particularly, but I get your point. If you really, go in and analyze individually, okay. But in terms of a metric that the board can be looking at on a regular basis to be assessing whether you're making progress on that one issue of security,
right?
What are we going to look at? Really?
Well, you can always look at the behavior slips, whatever we're using, too. We can see that there were 17 referrals to Patty, 'cause she's looking right at me, because, and of those 17 referrals, 10 of them were for language and 7 of them were threatening to beat somebody up or something, you know what I'm saying? But, you have those referral slips that could actually show student behavior.
And does that seem like a good measure? I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Sorry, Greg. I think security goes deeper than students.
Absolutely.
Everyone in this room brings with them the baggage of authority. And how we function together creates security or undermines security of the people over whom we have authority. So I think there's a sense of teacher security. Like, I feel confident and comfortable in what I'm doing that frees me to create, that I just give I'm not worried about the dysfunction somewhere else so I'm totally present in this classroom.
Right.
So I think that sense of security, before we sort of jump to, is it about referrals? Is it about attendance? Like, I think that sense of security, the ability to function very publicly creates or undermines a sense of security.
I agree with you completely, and I think it's at every level. I think it's the building administrators have that same sense of security developed by central office, right? And poor Bill kind of has to just go for it, right? He doesn't have that, well, in a way, the board is creating that sense of security because they're working in partnership with administration, right? If they get off track and they're working at cross purposes, there's no security, no sense of security, I should say. I'm not talking about employment security, I'm talking about core security in that world either. So it's not really dependent on power. I mean, I get what you're saying, but it really is at all levels. I saw, yes, Dina.
I think the word that we may want to go back to is belonging. And I think one of the past surveys that were done since I've been on the board that caught my attention back, and this was Rob may be able to help me because it was a while ago. That survey that was done for high school and middle schoolers about their sense of belonging in the school. And I remember it very clearly because it gave me the sense of where we may have, where our blind sides are. We have blind sides in the system that we may not acknowledge or know even until we start digging and unlayering the onions a bit more. And going back to Suzanne's point, big part in my mind for feeling security is that sense of belonging, that people around you are part of you. They're part of the same, you are part of them and they are part of you, and that's part of community. And I think that triggered, trickles down to everything else on that list. When we look at recovery, when we look at equity, we look at all those items, and I think if we find a way to capture that sense of belonging, it will give us a lot of valuable information in terms of where our school climate is across the board, students, staff, whatever it may be. And I definitely agree 100% with Suzanne's point. You can be in the worst place in the world and feel very secured during missile attacks, and you can be in downtown slumber party city somewhere and feel very unsafe or insecure because you're not part of it. It's being part of where you're at.
Right, and so I'm going to pull this conversation together here, but so one of the things that you want to be tracking for monitoring purposes on the issue of improving climate is security, belonging, call it, I think those are two sides of the same coin, really. And how are you going to do that? With student surveys, with faculty surveys, maybe attendance, maybe not. So you need to find what those metrics are that you expect to have reported back to the board, addressing the goal of respecting all, however Allison put it, right? And there will be multiple indicators. There's not just one, because it's a complicated and complex topic. And so you're going to look at a lot of different pieces at different times so that you get a big picture of what's really happening with the school climate. I think we need to move on. I think we've already sort of hit on a goal statement around equity, around inclusivity, right? Somebody came up with something that we sort of said, yeah, we can use that later.
It was so long ago now, we don't remember.
Nobody remembers.
So the final sentence, that to promote an inclusive, supportive climate where everyone treats each other with dignity and respect. I don't know if that's where you're thinking though.
Well, no, see, I think that kind of inclusivity is a different ballgame again. I think that's the belonging inclusivity as opposed to, okay, so let's leave that there.
I was going to say, I think we've overthought this to the point of we might be, sometimes you need to step away and come back.
But I want to step over here to the board's civil discourse because it's related to the climate issue at a different level in a different way. But it is interfering with the board's work right now, preventing you from getting to some of these other priorities, because your meetings are inefficient because of it. So how is the board, that, and you've spoken here with your sticky dots, right? The board wants to improve civil discourse. How's that going to happen?
I think we, back to the basics of just respecting one another and checking our, I hate to use this analogy, but checking our egos at the door. You know, sometimes I think I'll speak for myself, come in, personal agenda, and then instead of doing what we should be doing is focusing on the students, we focus on what we as an individual want, and we're one body, we're one voice. And if we're here to serve not only our students, but our staff and our administration, we need to come in with respect for one another, because we have to set that tone for them. If they're seeing us with civil discourse, they're not going to be secure, going back to that. They're not going to be secure where they are in their position. So if I check my ego at the door and come in to say, I'm here to do the work of the students and the teachers and the staff, and not what, I'm hearing from whoever on the outside to get the job done at the end of the day. Not only do I think that will help with our civil discourse, it'll also shorten our meetings. Just gonna say.
Well, those two things are not unrelated. But okay, so how are we gonna do that, Allison?
I mean, I think we need to respect different points of view.
Yeah.
And be able to discuss them without attacking.
So the issues are issues, they're not people, right? And that sometimes gets blurry.
Yeah.
Right? Especially when there's passions involved.
Yeah.
Most times. When somebody's passionate about something, they put all of themselves into it, and so it's very hard to separate out the issue from the person.
Right.
And that's maybe at the core of all of this, but what are the board members going to be able to do to come in and talk about those issues respectfully, to check their egos at the door? I mean,
we have to be able to, as a board, and I said this the last time, especially because what happens, I think, sometimes as board members, and I know me personally since the last time we spoke, we get better about things. These guys don't want to see us as individuals, or more letters to the editor, or things on Facebook where we talk as one. We talk as one voice and as one board member, so that when they look to us, or they look in the paper, or they look wherever it may be, that they see that we're on a united front. And I think that by allowing us to show them that we can do that, because ultimately we're all adults, right? Or we're supposed to be. And so if we can show them and model for them how we want them to be as administrators, for then going down into the teachers and all the way down. If you don't have that, we're not gonna get anywhere.
Civil discourse doesn't necessarily just have to be inside a board meeting.
Yeah,
it can be on social media. When you have board members actively, currently, being negative and using names to other board members on social media, then once it's on, our meetings, our full board meetings are recorded and public, but then when everybody can see, not everybody, but social media is social media. You can take a screenshot of that and it can just spread like wildfire. So it's not just within our board meetings, it goes to online as well.
And that goes back to what we were talking about last week in terms of the limits of board member
And so perfect example, we had that conversation and one board member attacked 3 different board members after that meeting. So apparently nothing was learned from our last time we were here. Okay. And I took a screenshot of it.
Okay.
So.
And was that discussed at a board meeting? Did anybody raise that?
At this point in time, no.
Why?
Because I'm the one who saw it and I was not at the last 2 board meetings being sick. That's why.
I think and I'm using somebody else's words and I don't remember her name. She's a known psychologist, but I don't remember her name. But she was talking about two things that caught my attention when I was listening to her. And one was the ability to respond versus react to, because we're dealing with opinions. We're not dealing with your quality as a person or your personal interaction with me as a person. We're dealing with the interaction of our opinions. As much as I feel very strongly about my opinions, they're still my opinions. And so I think what we've seen last year is a lot of reactiveness versus a response to things. And the other thing is that caught my attention was the ability, not only, we always want to be right, but instead of being right all the time, is getting it right, getting the process right, getting the movement, the outcome right, getting everything in the funneling it so we get to a solution or resolution, not just saying, being right and making our statement of this is the right thing to do and that's our manifesto of the day. You know, and I think a lot of what we've spent time is really feeling strongly about our need to, as much as we feel like we are right, of actually being right, and we failed at getting it right.
And I just want to build on that, if it's okay. So there's always this tension of advocacy versus inquiry, and I think to try to capture what Dina's saying is that, like, if you're advocating for your point, you're pushing one rock up a hill, but if you inquire about it, so, you know, something happened, I don't know, on social media, you approach that person and say, I wonder if you understand the impact that this might have made for us, or what was your intention on making this statement, or, so instead of, like, we all have this impulse to advocate for a point, the second being mindful of the advocacy, just step back and say, okay, how can I turn this into a question? So instead of advocate, just ask a question every time, and it works. It pulls the whole group up.
Yep, that's a great tactic. Anybody? Josh, Marlene?
So 100% what he just said, I think that's the crux of a lot of it. And the thing that I always say again, and I said it last time, was that sometimes you're passionate and you're trying to advocate, but a lot of times, you know, it's how people hear you. Mm-hmm. And if you want your point to be heard, I mean, you can say something in one way and someone else hears it a different way. Mm-hmm. And I don't think sometimes we're mindful of that. And sometimes I also think that maybe we could try and listen more and get more of other people's points of view before we speak, because when you are passionate about something, you want to talk about it. You want to make sure your point is heard and get that in, and sometimes maybe we need to do a lot more listening too. So, but 100% what he said.
So hearing this whole conversation, I feel like I want to give you all an assignment, which is so not my role and so out of place for what I'm here to help you do. But I really think that, and again, I'm not pushing it. I'm not pushing our conference because it's our conference, but there is an opportunity to hear this renowned psychologist speak on just these issues, okay? On how to come together and talk about things you know you disagree on and still have civil discourse. It's next Friday, November 5th at 9 a.m. online. It's one fee for the entire SU. So, and you're probably already registered, right? Because it's the VSA and VSBA together. So if you're already registered, the rest of you get a free ride. Please register for, even if you don't attend anything else, listen to that one session. And if you can't make it in real time, you'll have access, I think, you'll have access to a recording. And then I would strongly encourage you to include a discussion of that hour and 45-minute webinar at your next board meeting thereafter to continue this conversation, because that may bring some new ideas to you all, and it may just resonate in a way that we haven't gotten to yet. So, instead of a book study, I'm going to suggest this particular program.
You'll send us out.
Her name is Julia Minson, M-I-N-S, Susan O-N.
Thank you.
And as I said, she's at Harvard. She actually is in the, one of her specialties is negotiations, because she deals with adverse opinions coming together and needing to maintain decorum. That's her very narrow, specific focus. Okay. You writing stickies?
I thought he was
Okay,
gonna start filling it up.
I think we've addressed that discourse topic. That's for the board to work on. And I think you need to figure out for yourselves what measures you're going to be able to use to check in on yourselves on an ongoing basis throughout the year. You can't rely on your superintendent to provide you with input there, okay? That's outside his purview. He's not here to help the board function well. So let's go back over here then to recovery.
Measures. You don't have to worry about
Recovery. Talking about academic recovery and social and emotional, I'm assuming?
Yes.
And so the academic recovery is for your students, and social emotional is probably for everybody in the district. Okay? So where is the board's line when it comes to academic recovery? You're not going to articulate specific curriculum benchmarks or achievement. What is it you want to see? And I welcome input from everybody on this one. What are you going to be able to look at and say, yeah, we're making progress? What's academic recovery going to look like for your kids?
I have a question within that. So, as a parent who had a child in the middle school for 2 horrendous years, I look at recovery as going further than the last year and a half of COVID. I will use an example of a parent-teacher conference that I had with somebody sitting in this room right now who told me that and at my child's 8th grade year, I think, that they had lost their entire 7th grade year. There was so that particular class now is the sophomore class. So recovery to me is beyond COVID. It should be going to, again, and which goes to the whole safety piece, there's a lot within that dynamic. So recovery should be the issue. Some parts of recovery should go to the current sophomore and junior class, not just focused on COVID recovery.
I think recovery, when I think about it, and maybe this is the educator in me, we always look at recovery in fall because we have to figure out what we have to recover from the summer. And, I don't think I think it's right, it's not just a COVID issue, but we have to figure out how we manage how you can get the reports in because students regress over the summer. We know that. It's been proven and, there's nothing we can do about that. So I think we have to look at specific points, be it a test, standardized test, whatever. I'll hate standardized testing, but whatever it is, we have to make sure that the timing also coincides for the best for the students too. So I think recovery, yeah, we're talking COVID now, but we're also talking how do we manage that recovery from June 15th to August 28th. That's always been an issue.
I think recovery too, I sat with Patty this summer on a cool program that she was working on between middle school and high school on being able to recover those students in 8th grade to go up to 9th grade. And I think, they saw some success, I believe, with that program. So if I'm looking back and moving forward for the next year and a half, I think that, us as a board, we can financially support these programs for them, and that's our job, is to financially support them. But seeing the outcomes and hearing the outcomes are huge, right? Because it may be that we can offer you those support systems, but until I know, right? Because I sat with Patty to really understand what the program was, because I didn't know it. And to be able to offer those supports for the financial piece of it and allow these guys to really use their creative minds to be able to give us their projected paths on how we can recover from not only the loss of academics, but, over the past few years, if we've seen a loss in education.
Okay. Allison, I saw you.
Yeah, so, right now, the administration already has identified learning losses, so they have metrics already in place. So I believe the appropriate thing would be to monitor the recovery from the academic standpoint in making substantial gains.
And have dollars been allocated? But those are COVID dollars, right? ESSER funds. Okay. Yeah, so then you want to ensure academic recovery for learning losses, right? And to do that, you're going to want to see metrics, right? Yeah.
I would just expand it from just academic loss to social, emotional, behavioral regression.
Well, I would actually kind of maybe separate those two, include them both, but you're going to see different metrics. The board's going to see different metrics in order to assess progress in both of those areas. I agree, they're both necessary. Charlene, and then
we have Trisha, or not Trisha.
I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
I think when we're talking about metrics too, we want to see incremental improvement. So one of the phrases that you used earlier was move the needle. So the intent is to move the needle, and then it's going to be incremental, because you may not see huge improvements, but we're looking for incremental improvements.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's the context in which you, through Bill, communicate to the board those results. I agree.
I find that the recovery for a board member is a little bit tougher too, because I don't have a direct impact in that area, as far as I think it's a lot to do with the teachers and the administration, because they're the ones that see what's happening. They're giving the tests. They're dealing with behavioral. So all I can do is ask myself as a board member, what can I do to support them the best way I can to help them that way? So
the board
again,
allocates the funds to provide if additional staffing is needed.
Right.
Your administrators come to you and tell you what they need from you to make that happen, but it's your goal to make it happen, so you're going to prioritize that over something else.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. I mean, you're not going to roll up your sleeves and...
No, and I'm saying I'm not setting particular goals as far as how... I think they're the ones that are going to tell me how the recovery is going, and then I will support them with whatever they tell me they need. And if it's financial, then so be it. But for me to dive in and say, I think you need to do this and this, I mean, they're the ones that are most knowledgeable in the recovery.
Absolutely, and I'm not suggesting that you prescribe how to handle the recovery. You're just focused on recovery being a priority, and the board supporting it with the board's tools to support it, which are not to define the steps and are not to even know the programs.
Right, yeah.
You know, I mean, if you're interested, that's fine, but it's not within your role to need to understand any of that.
Correct.
Okay, yes.
I was just going to say, I think we also have to have the support of the board in being creative in the way that we are trying to change certain things. So the metrics that we've used for so many years, testing is one of them.
Right.
That's not going to work right now. Right. So to Stephanie's point, I don't really want to talk about like learning loss, because I don't have figures right here for you, and honestly, they'd be very difficult to determine at this point in time. But we all know that there's been differing learning loss for all of our students.
And so using those same metrics or using similar programming that we've done before, isn't really going to work the way it would have maybe in some situations. I don't like the word recovery, because recovery to me makes me think that it's like a medical model, right? You had a body and the body was injured, and so now you're going to recover pretty much to the full extent that you did before. I don't see it that way. I see it in a very different light. So anyway, I think for me personally, I would like to know that as I try to be more creative and think of ways to help all of our children succeed, that if a taxpayer came to you and said, I think she's crazy, you might just say, well, let's think a little bit about what she's saying. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
And also to your point about creative solutions, it may be that what the board gets in the way of I'm going to use the term metric, but it's not really a metric, is that you are invited to come in, you're invited by Bill to come into a board meeting and present the body of work. And that's a way of demonstrating progress, right? It's not all about empirical data. Stephanie.
I like what you said, and the other also for that recovery is the primary school. So Lauren, your grades can't be the same as Greg's grades. That each individual grade has to be measured differently. And the primary, I'm not going to elaborate, but at this point, it's like whether we are talking about COVID or other issues, each grade has to be measured differently. And you're not going to measure all 4 grades in the high school the same based off certain things of the last 3 years. And COVID as part of that, and other issues as part of that.
And it may be, I happened to, in preparing for tonight, I took a look at the annual snapshot for your district, the Agency of Education's tool. And it's true, there's no test data for 2019, and so by now the 2018 data is pretty old. But your 3rd grade reading scores are not where I think anybody would want them to be. And so one of the indicators for this recovery goal may be around bringing that score up. Now, I get that that's a score of, a snapshot in time across a whole population, and there's all kinds of reasons that, standardized test scores are limited in what they can tell us, but they are one metric. And that 3rd grade reading level, we all know, is critical for academic success for the rest of their lives. So it's an important one to focus on. Yeah, sure.
I think as a board member, I guess I'd appreciate even feedback from the teachers and the administration so we can know where we stand and maybe where we can help. So if we hear that there's a need, or if it's getting better, or maybe a sense of how that's going, that would be great. Because there is, like Pam said, emotional also needs, and they'd have to be measured differently. Like the kids in the high school are maybe acting differently, obviously, than the young kids.
Right, and so the board asks Bill to bring in evidence. And that evidence, like I said, may be a presentation from some faculty who are close to that information. Right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Anything more on that? Oh, good. So now we just have a few minutes to talk about this light topic of equity, which is massive and permeates everything, everything. In terms of climate, in terms of academics, you name it, right? And so trying to incorporate that goal from the board's perspective such that it translates is my favorite new word, ginormous undertaking. Where do you start? We talked about inclusion. That's a start.
And when you look at inclusion, besides, if I look at everything from gender, sexual orientation, but I also look at the financial piece. The economic piece is huge in this county, in this city in particular, and that I think plays a big role in that. But I would also like to hear from you all as administrators, teachers, staff, because they're the ones that deal with it every day. And sometimes to hear them, to see where their kids are coming from.
Yeah, it's not just about the kids.
Absolutely, but
Do you have an equity policy?
We do.
Yeah. And
Adopted the VSBA one, right?
I was gonna say we adopted it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how is that influencing the board work? Okay. How is that influencing anything?
I think I think we have an equity work group that has worked very hard to kind of come up, as far as a goal statement, I would propose that we think about the goal of, working to make sure that every student gets what they need.
Thank you. Beautiful.
I like that.
I think with the board work, I think the board's done a lot of work on addressing the weighting stuff, trying to push for the advocate. I think that's a big piece of what you were just talking about.
Mm-hmm. Are you involved with the coalition about that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Allison's our representative, and we help with that.
So, I think that's a really important first step, because starting at the board level, it changes the board's perspective on how you address the issues to filter through the entire district, right? You were going to say something. I cut you right off.
No,
Okay. So, Dina.
I was just, Pam, can you read again the equity part?
That we work to make sure that every student gets what they need.
I would not necessarily add to that statement, but I would just add as a kind of sidebar, is a step before that or towards it is also what the committee and the work groups are doing, is inquiring to that what that is. Mm-hmm. And when those things present themselves, believing that that is actually true. And I think that's a big part of equity that is sometimes missed in the goal setting, is digging deeply and understanding where those needs that are not there, where are the missing links for some students or staff or whoever it may be. And when those arrive at our doorstep, not turning them away and saying, no, this is not part of us. Like, that's, to me, more a bigger part of where statements can be statements, but the actions on the ground may be a little bit off of the statement. So really understanding where things are coming from and the root of the problems are far more important to me than the broad statement of everybody gets what they need, and how do we measure that, which is another piece.
Right.
If we don't understand it, we can't measure it. So if we don't understand what those needs that are, what everybody needs, we can't measure if they're getting it or not.
Right.
In other words.
Right, and I just want to go around the corner with that. Understanding what each student needs is not the work of the board.
No, absolutely
right?
not.
That's the work of the administration and the faculty.
That's the work of an equitable system that thrives to be equitable. So we are just saying we want to be equitable. Now, how do we get it done?
And we need to provide the resources
right.
to make that possible.
Yeah.
And then we want to hear how that's going,
right.
How that's happening at every level.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Did I see?
I was wondering, Dina, so I understand, what I'm hearing is also, I guess, more simply put, is who determines if that's a need? And we want to make sure that if the student feels it's a need, that they are heard, and not say, well, I don't think that's a need.
Because it's not my need, or it's not
right,
your
exactly.
need, that it's not a need.
Right. So how do we
right.
accomplish that without...
Yes.
That's their work.
Right.
I'm just paraphrasing,
yes,
so I understand what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I was going to say something, and so equity is a term, right? And then there's language is so funny, because equity would be the return on value. So in the finance or business, it is. Equity is what you have invested.
Equity is your asset.
Yeah, so it's like your return. So I guess if we're looking.
It's not your return, it's your asset.
Okay.
But
Point is.
you're describing the English language.
Yeah. Point is, like, if we're looking at that, you know, in what are the students getting in return? What is the faculty getting? How are we, you know, how is that investment paying back, right? For lack of a sort of different way to look at this, because equality and equity, they are interchangeable and they have their own, they have, ma'am, I just found something that literally totally does. So there's this balance of how the language is used. That's my point. So when we're discussing these things, we can look at it from different perspectives and creatively to say, what does this word, what does this idea mean, and how do we come at it so there is value?
Okay, but if you adopted the VSBA model policy for equity, there's a definition of equity right there. And it's not equality, it's equity. It's meaning each student gets what they need specifically, not that all students get the same.
I have not read that to the T, so I could not tell you that. I'm just pointing out that there is overlapping and different things that come out of this. So we, unfortunately, nobody's going to make everybody happy. This group is not going to make peace in the world. It's not.
No.
And vice versa for any other group. So we have to find that value and investment and invest in our students, our faculty, our community. So just as a different perspective on that, I thought that would be interesting to find that nice balance of equality.
Just so you know, my pal Betty Capitan over there did as we requested, and she put our definitions of equity up on the website. It is on the front. I know you couldn't find the vision and mission statement, but the definition of equity is where you
I thought it was on the front.
Adults, the adult definition is increasing, and thanks to Kathy Solsa for bringing this to the board, I don't know, a year ago. Adults increasing the possibility of success for all. Interrupting systemic practices that negatively impact students based on who they are, providing equal access to all, and cultivating every student. The student definition, easy for students to understand, everyone gets what they need to become who they are self-determined to be, making sure that nothing's in the way of any one of us growing to become the talented and wonderful human beings we are. So that's right on the website. That beats your vision and mission, right? Because it's up there.
Excellent. Okay, so, you know, how is the board able to make that a priority? What is the board work around that? You're already doing some, right? In terms of understanding what that means in a more tangible way within the district and in life. Right, and your work groups, I don't know much about what you're doing there. Are those board work groups, or are they involving administration?
Yeah, so there's admin, there's teachers, there's paraeducators, board members. We've met at least once a month since the beginning of last school year. Through the summer, did some work. We did data, we did a survey, analyzed the data. We're in the process of making a 5-year plan for different areas that we want to address so that we can get to the end result that we had described a year ago.
Okay, so
And we're also looking at, I think Kevin's looking at some training for us.
I'm not doing a good job at that, so.
But you have that to look at, right? You've got, okay, and then, so there is some ongoing work with that.
Okay. And just so you all know, VSBA on your behalf, on all school districts' behalf, got a $150,000 grant from the Vermont Community Foundations because they recognize the impact and the importance of schools in influencing the whole community around this. And so we have actually engaged 2 different consultants, equity consultants, one of whom is going to go through the VSBA model policies with an equity lens and really review them all. And the other consultant is around communication and messages, which will get sent out to all of you as they evolve. That's a new arrangement, but so there's another resource there for you. And there will also be, if you're dealing with specific issues, there will also be direct access to those consultants on a screened and perhaps limited basis, depending on what the demand looks like, for districts to have access to these consultants as well. Just so you know, there's another tool in the tool chest there. Yeah, Rob.
So just real fast, I know all you board members carry around your massive policy binder. Your equity policy is 7,700. You can find it on your website too if you want to see the definitions that are built in your policy there too.
Thank you.
Yep.
And one of the things about one of the board's pieces of equity that I can encourage you to be working on is to review your policy manual, policy by policy, through an equity lens tool to ensure that there's nothing in your policies that are completely contradictory of equity.
It's in our 5-year plan.
Perfect.
I just want to, just another point, not again the definition. This is a priority for us because it is not about making everybody happy in my mind, or likes or dislikes. It's about creating the space to exist as you are with the things that you cannot change about yourself. Not that you would want to, necessarily, but the things that we bring to a space that are part of us that we cannot check at the door. So if we're talking about security and belonging and climate and all of that, if we don't have that foundation of people entering our spaces feeling like they can be as they are, not a like or dislike of this or that, or making them happy because they got what they wanted. It's about existing in the space. And without that, we can talk about all these other wonderful things, but it will be very difficult to get to it if we don't have this fundamental existential part of our plan.
And I'm going to assume that the work groups are reporting out to the board on some regular interval, or are all board members involved in those work groups?
We've done a few reports to the board, and we have we share minutes for. We have a couple board members who are involved.
Okay.
But we could
Something we could do.
We could stand for
Something we could do better on.
Yep.
Yeah, and that could be another standing agenda item, and every third month have committee members come in, and on the other months have the board representatives on that work group update or something. Okay, I am mindful of the time, and I'm over time by 3 minutes, so I'm not keeping you anymore. I'm gonna.
The high school kids were this level.
That's right. Those kids are out there.
And before we adjourn, because we have to have an adjournment, I have two announcements. Well, one thing. There may be a pared down meeting agenda for the next meeting because we potentially have a grievance we will be hearing. And timing coming in with the holiday season and everything else going on, we have to be aware of that period of time. So I'm just putting everyone on notice. Potentially there could be a grievance, shorter meeting, the first one in November, and then a grievance right afterwards. That's something that I have to work out on the timing with Sherry and the grievant. Thank you. And I think we do need to have a round of applause for our presenter for everything that she has done for us.
So one more thing I'm going to do for you is I'm going to take all of this and I'm going to distill it all, and I will send you a page with the goal statements and some of the indicators that we talked about. And I'm going to send you these few pages, okay?
Yep.
Which we didn't get to sort of give you an idea of how to approach these on an ongoing basis, including, oh, no, I didn't put it in there, a sample of a monitoring report for your goals, so that your staff your faculty, can provide you with a comprehensive bing, 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 here are your goals, here's what we've done, here are the outcomes, or we're still working on it. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
I really
We have to
appreciate
adjourn,
your
don't we?
time
Yes, we do.
tonight. You did really good work. You know how to reach me. I'll see you all next Friday morning.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.